Hey, what's going on, everyone? NoZoupForYou here, and today we're going to take a look at the two upcoming new tech tree ships for the Russian cruiser line. And these are both the Tier 10 cruisers. You've got the Petropavlovsk and the Alexander Nevsky. One is of the heavy variant, which that's going to be the Petropavlovsk, kind of similar to the Moskva, and then your lighter variant is going to be the Nevsky, which I guess you could say is somewhat similar to maybe the Kutuzov, if you're familiar with playing that ship. I know a lot of you older players, well, I don't want to say older, but you veterans out there definitely have played the Kutuzov, or at least are aware of it. I don't see the Kutuzov as much anymore. I guess it's been eclipsed by other ships. It's still a good ship if you take it out every now and then, though. I'm kind of enticed to play it now, just for old time's sake. But these are the new Tier 10 tech tree ships as the Moskva gets moved over to the premium side of things. Now, I'm not going to go into deep depth on the statistics of these ships in this video. I really don't feel the need to, or the desire to. And the reason I don't is I'm actually kind of, well, I'm not on the verge of doing a full-on rant, but I'm borderline at that point right now. And I think, at least with the Petropavlovsk, if there was any doubt that Russian bias does exist, this ship, if it makes it into the game as is, keeping in mind it's a work in progress, should eliminate that doubt whatsoever. For those of you that did not get the Stalingrad, this is pretty much a tech tree Stalingrad. Granted, it doesn't have the amount of hit points that the Stalingrad has, or the tankiness, but it's definitely got those guns. And those guns are why I think this ship is absolutely ridiculous. Those 220 millimeter guns that have a projectile speed of 1,000 meters per second and a 2.05 sigma. Those are railguns if I have ever seen railguns. And quite honestly, it's disgusting. I've had decent rounds in her, and despite the fact that I'm rusty and haven't been able to play the most because of raising these two twins that can be terrors at times, I've still performed very well in her. I Citadel battleships left and right, and I kind of laugh at it, because for a cruiser to be able to reliably Citadel any battleship in the game, it just gives you this really dirty feel. It's somewhat laughable. I'm going to point you over to a game that Business 6 had, though, and he's put it on a Twitch highlight, and I think he planned on putting it on YouTube if he hasn't done so already. He had a round in the Petropavlovsk where he did 320,000 damage and had some 25 to 30 citadels. I mean, this ship is just disgusting in its ability to citadel other ships, to the point that I don't know that I agree with it, because I feel the weaknesses of the ship are so few compared to those guns and what those guns can do. And of course, on top of that, you've got that Russian 12-kilometer radar, which far outrivals any radar in the game. And again, you know, in my opinion, that is just another obvious sign of bias. And you know, we could go into the whole Russian bias side of this ship in the Nevsky the rest of the video. I'm not going to do that, though, because usually what that comes down to is half of you all saying, yeah, there's definitely bias, and then half of you all saying there isn't bias. Just my opinion right there. It's becoming pretty blatant. And I'm just going to stick with that. And we're not going to touch or say the word bias again. But the bottom line is, the projectile speed on these ships is dirty. Flat out dirty. The Nevsky is pretty much the same. The difference between these two ships, like I said, one is kind of the lighter variant of ships. The Nevsky is a much faster firing ship. It's very similar to your lighter Russian cruisers, you know, kind of Kutuzov-ish, kind of, I hate to bring up Smolensk. I wouldn't say it's similar to the Smolensk, but it's also not dissimilar. It also carries torpedoes, which, I mean, they're actually fun. In my experience, Nevsky doesn't deal quite the amount of damage that the Petropavlovsk does, and I feel out of the two, the Nevsky is a lot more balanced. I feel that there's definitely weaknesses to it, and its armor isn't quite as stout from what I've seen, or at least in my testing of the ship. But that being said, it's also got that 12-kilometer radar as well, and both ships just have stay the F away from me anti-aircraft guns. So if you're an aircraft carrier and you close in on these ships, you're going to lose a lot of planes, an absolute lot of planes. The other thing these ships have going for them is they've got speed. 36 knots on the Nevsky, and, you know, the Petropavlovsk is pretty fast as well. So this is where we're at right now. This is where we have landed with the Russian cruisers, and this brings up another very good point. And I got to tell you, Wargaming probably made the right decision deciding to limit community contributors from getting these ships very, very early in the cycle, because this is a highlight of what happens when we get these ships very, very early in the testing cycle. I go on a semi-rant about how I think these ships are ridiculous and how one can citadel ships in a ridiculous type of way, even battleships, and that changes the focus from the pan-European destroyers that are out right now that I feel are actually pretty stout and fun to play, and you all should be playing them. And now all you're going to be able to do is focus on these Russian cruisers because they are somewhat ridiculous. But again, when that happens, which in a way I agree with what Wargaming is doing, they probably should have done this all along, because, you know, we're losing focus on what's out there and we're creating controversy with these ships. The downside of that, though, is, you know, ships like this can make it in a lot more easy now. You can see the Petropavlovsk and the Nevsky in the game untouched because we don't have these voices out here, like myself or Business or all the others who've been able to wreck face in these ships, and especially the Petropavlovsk. You don't have us hammering at home that these ships are ridiculous and changes need to be made. So it's more likely that these ships are actually going to make it into the game. I think had the community contributors not been there, the Slava would have made it in as that tier 10 battleship split. If the CCs hadn't raised such a stink, I think that ship would have made it into the game. But we were able to nip it in the bud so early that the community saw how ridiculous it was, that it was shelved for quite a while. And I suspect it's going to be coming back very soon, though, now that we've got these ships coming into the game and things are changing with the way we actually get and review the ships. So again, with that move, there's pluses and there's definitely negatives, but it definitely works out to Wargaming's advantage because they don't have us whining about these ships, and we don't lose focus on the ships that are currently in our hands, like the pan-European destroyers. So I just want to give you a heads up on these two ships. Again, I think the Nevsky isn't quite as ridiculous as the Petropavlovsk, but the Petropavlovsk is definitely, it's a railgun ship. I mean, both have railguns. Both have extreme accuracy, but the Petropavlovsk, with its 220 millimeter shells and its accuracy, it's just, no cruiser should be able to citadel the hell out of battleships the way this thing does, in my opinion at least. You might feel something different, but I'm sure most of you have gone around enough and looked at enough videos of the Petropavlovsk to make up your own decision. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you guys. Things are getting interesting, especially with the announcement of paper German aircraft carriers. I've heard rumors that sub-testing is going to pick back up again. We're entering bold new waters, no pun intended. So we're going to see where this all leads, but this is your look at the Tier 10 Russian cruisers, your light and your heavy variant. Once again, Moskva moving to premium. These are what you're going to have. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you are going to want to work towards these, and Petropavlovsk, if it doesn't change, you know, it's really a tech tree version of the Stalingrad. So if you didn't get the Stalingrad or you can't get the steel, you know, this ship is a very viable replacement for it, and you'll get the complete feel of it. So that's at least one bright bonus to that. Anyhow, guys, be sure to leave a comment. I want to know your thoughts of these ships and what you've heard about them and what you think based upon what you've seen everywhere. Hope you all are doing wonderful. I know a lot of you are self-isolating right now, if not most of you. Remember, quarantines if you're actually sick. Self-isolate is when you're not sick and you just want to stay safe. And I hope you all do stay safe. I really do. I worry about everyone right now. So stay safe out there, guys. Take it easy. Zoop out.